Good evening. Thank you. We're going to reconvene the public session, and will City Attorney give a report on the actions taken in closed session?
Yes, the City Council discussed the matters which are listed in the closed session agenda, and there are no reportable actions.
Okay, thank you. We will now have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mayor Pro Tem Robin Grunmeyer, and the invocation by Heather Snow, member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Please join me in a salute to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening.
Our Father in heaven, we're thankful that we could be here this evening. We're thankful for this city that we live in and this place in the world. We're thankful for this country. We're thankful for the people that live here and for our relationships with one another. We're grateful for people who serve within the city in various capacities, and we ask that those in decision-making positions, that they can do so with wisdom, and that we can all communicate with kindness and understanding and compassion. We are grateful for our Savior Jesus Christ, and please bless our efforts in trying to be more like Him. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Before we get started with presentations, at our last council meeting, which was just a small meeting in the conference rooms, and we had a very minimal crowd, we introduced Lori Sassoon, our new city manager. So I thought I'd embarrass her just a little bit, this being her second meeting with a much larger crowd. So I'd like to introduce our new city manager, Lori Sassoon. Okay, with that, we're going to do a Community Spirit Award, and Catherine, would you please do the presentation?
Good evening, everyone. It is a pleasure to tell you about why Andrea Gladson has been picked for the Norco Community Spirit Award. She has been a Norco resident since 1990, and while living here, she has raised 3 children, 6 dogs, 8 cats, 70 chickens, 5 ducks, 1 tortoise, and 2 horses. In her professional life, she's been breaking barriers as a pilot for American Airlines since 1987, and she's worked as a captain since 2003. And additionally, she now teaches professional leadership and mentoring to all captains and international first officers. And I mention that because her leadership is something that she has shown in her professional as well as her personal life. In her over 30 years of being a Norconian, she has volunteered as the News for Norco administrator and moderator, where she helps local community groups by posting events, supply drives, and fundraisers. She offers her help to all, and she can often be found driving all around Norco to pick up and drop off items to help both groups and individuals. She also volunteers as a dog handler for Therapy Dog International, as a guest lecturer at our local schools. She was the vice president of the JFK High School Booster Club, the vice president of the Norco High School Girls Soccer Booster Club, and she has spent many, many hours over the years volunteering her spare time at various Norco High School, Norco FFA, and city events. Most recently, she co-founded the nonprofit Norco United, and she serves as the president on their board of directors. She was also named a 2022 Assembly District 60 Woman of Distinction in recognition of her dedication to serving others in Norco and our nearby communities. On top of everything I just mentioned, Andrea also makes the time to watch every single council meeting. Even if she's not here, she watches them online, and she weighs in on the issues that are important to her and our community. She is an example of both democracy in action and an engaged citizen, and she's truly one of our town's unsung heroes. Thank you, Andrea, for working tirelessly for the betterment of our city. And if you would come up. On behalf of the Norco City Council, we applaud you for embodying the spirit of Norco.
Well, it's a third time to get scheduled to come, but COVID kind of kicked us out a couple times, and I'm thankful and blessed to be here. I just wanted to say thank you for recognizing all kinds of different volunteers, not just the traditional person that puts in what you would consider time, but all kinds of different things. And we know that volunteering builds our spirit, deepens our community, builds connections. And I just want everybody to know that we have a place for you in Norco to volunteer. All ages, all people. And we welcome you. So please come if you want to anytime. But again, thank you very much for it's embarrassing, but I appreciate I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Congratulations. Congratulations again. Okay, I'd like to call upon Matt Jones and Eric Calder from Riverside County Emergency Management Department to the podium, and I will present them with a proclamation. Could you find anybody bigger?
He called in sick.
Yeah. I need my bench to stand on. These are the guys you want on your team, obviously. Whereas National Preparedness Month is observed each September to raise awareness about the importance of preparing for disasters and emergencies that could happen at any time, and educating our community about National Preparedness Month will increase awareness and build an understanding of the types of disasters that could happen in our community. And the 2022 theme for National Preparedness Month, entitled A Lasting Legacy, reminds residents that the life they've built is worth protecting and urges them to build a lasting legacy for their families by preparing for disasters and emergencies. Whereas, and taking steps towards personal preparedness and ensuring that our households, our animals, businesses, schools, places of worship, and community-based organizations are prepared for any disaster that will reduce fatalities and devastation following a major crisis. And whereas the city's partners, including CAL FIRE, Riverside County Fire Department, Riverside County Emergency Management Department, Riverside County Sheriff's Department, and Norco College, are working to increase opportunities to teach residents how to prepare for emergencies and to be ready to act following a disaster. And whereas emergency preparedness is the responsibility of every Norco resident, and all residents are urged to develop and plan and prioritize, preparedness so that we are equipped to work together to ensure that residents and their animals are ready for emergencies and disasters. Now therefore, I, Greg Newton, Mayor of the City of Norco, on behalf of the City Council, do proclaim September 2022 as National Emergency Preparedness Month. Gentlemen,
Thank you, sir.
say a few words.
Hello, everyone. I'm Matt Jones. I'm an emergency services coordinator. I don't need this thing. I'm an emergency services coordinator with the Riverside County Emergency Management Department, and I've been the coordinator assigned to the city of Norco since January. I'm a Norco guy. I lived on Trail Street, went to Washington Elementary. My parents got a crazy idea to move to Orange County for some reason, but I came back. And I love being here. And I work with Sarah Murrow at Station 47, along with the chief and Chief Burrow. This is a real important topic, obviously, for us and for the city. We just spent the last 3 weeks down at the Fairview fire, and I can tell you that preparedness is an important thing, especially in a place that has the amount of animals here. I know Mike Williams is here with the Norco Animal Rescue Team. Thank you for doing what you do. It's amazing. Being prepared is really the difference between life and death. We lost 2 people down at the Fairview fire. They were not able to get out of an area quick enough. They didn't prepare. If you guys ever are in an emergency situation, believe me when I tell you, if you have taken just 5 minutes to think about how you're going to get out of someplace or what you're going to take, it is the difference between life and death. We have a lot of programs here with the county and with the city for emergency preparedness. So if you ever are in the area, please stop by Station 47. I'm there at least 20 hours a week, and I'll be more than happy to sit down and talk to you and get you any information you need. Thank you for having us tonight.
I'll tie into what Matt was saying. It's very, very important to be prepared. Day-to-day operations, your fire, your law, your EMS, they're going to be there for you. But when that catastrophic event happens, such as an earthquake, and we know it's going to happen, it's not a matter of if, it's when, you're going to be left on your own. So being prepared, it's going to be scary when that event does happen, but being prepared is going to lessen that impact. And people will often ask me, when will I know I'm prepared? I often say, when you can do a camping trip on a moment's notice at your home, having plenty of food, water, then you're prepared for a disaster. Having plenty of food and water for your animals. So being prepared is very important. Also taking CERT, Community Emergency Response Team. The city, or I'm sorry, the county does offer that along with the numerous other cities. What we teach in there is more disaster preparedness, how to shut off utilities, how to use a fire extinguisher, how to extinguish small fires, how to do search and rescue inside of a building that's been lightly damaged. We teach you how to do that. We teach you also how to do triage, which is to sort out how many victims you have, which ones are critical, which ones are not. And if you came into a room like this. The CERT program came about because of the Mexico City earthquake back in 1987. 5, sorry, thank you. Somebody was giving me the 5. Back in 1985, there are over 700 volunteers. Sadly, though, there were over 100 that were killed because they didn't know what to look out for. They weren't prepared. And part of that CERT class, we also give you personal protective equipment. We give you helmets, goggles, CERT vest, and a few other things with that too. So it's important to take that class as well to be prepared for a disaster as well. So that's going to help people be prepared for a disaster as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, how did you know you were next?
I just had a hunch.
You're the best.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and Norco community members. Celebrated every year in September, Senior Center Month is a time to shine a light on senior centers, demonstrating how vital they are to the health and well-being of a community. The 2022 theme for National Senior Center Month is strengthening community connections, and with over 20 weekly activities from billiard games to card-making classes, the Rose M. Eldridge Senior Center creates community in Norco by providing countless hours of support and encouragement to older adults and demonstrating social distancing does not need to lead to social disengagement. Through monthly senior socials like the annual senior prom and the Sweethearts Dance, the City of Norco demonstrates its commitment to ensuring our resilient community members have resources to maintain healthy lives, grow meaningful relationships, and continue to have extraordinary experiences. Belonging and independence for older adults in the Norco community is further supported by the Seniors on the Move transportation program. Through a collaborative effort, the City of Norco and the Riverside County Transportation Commission fund the shuttle service that connects seniors to grocery stores, medical appointments, and to visit family and friends. The shuttles also connect older adults to a variety of excursion destinations, including whale watching, botanical gardens, and a variety of museums. The Senior Center prides itself in being a vibrant facility that promotes an active lifestyle. Through the Senior Garden, yoga and exercise classes, and health and wellness seminars, through health and wellness seminars that focus on physical and emotional well-being. These opportunities promote a positive image of aging, highlight how our senior improves the lives of older adults, and create interest in prospective new participants and collaborative partners. I am incredibly proud of the Rose M. Eldridge Senior Center team, who are truly invested in improving the lives of older adults and help maintain their dignity and independence. And leading that Senior Center team is Community Services Supervisor Gage Zettelmeyer.
Hello. I'm sure everyone has big plans for Senior Center Month, but tomorrow we are having a big party, a social at the Senior Center. It's going to be from 12 to 2. We're going to have karaoke. We're going to have games, some ice cream. It's going to be a good time. Everyone's welcome to come and enjoy the festivities. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you guys have any questions?
No, I would
Nope.
just like to compliment you and your staff, and you guys do a great job.
Thank you.
You really do, and it's appreciated.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Right before we start reports on regional boards, I did want to note what Matt and Eric talked about on the CERT program. And after the meeting, if she's still here, Sigrid Williams with Norco College is doing a tremendous job getting that CERT program going. So you could wave your hand. Or did she left? She's in the hallway? She missed it then. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead. City Council reports on regional boards, and we'll start with Mayor Pro Tem Grunmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing to report.
Thank you. Kevin?
Go back to mine? Or do you want to go with Councilmember Alleman? There we go.
Okay.
Just a couple of things. I went to the September 7th, 8th, 9th Cal City's annual conference with Councilwoman Alleman and our new city manager, Lori. It was actually one of the better ones that I've attended. I think the highlight for me was, Ted, you'll remember we started Rural Cities, and we were so disappointed that it went goofy. Well, our complaints were listened to, and it was really quite remarkable. They're going to completely change how it functions, and they want to be more receptive to what we were looking for. So I'm really, really happy about that. We had a round robin where we talked about the real issues of rural cities. And a rural city can be one that's out in the middle of nowhere, and it can also be a semi-rural city like Norco. We all have some unique and individual problems, one of which is housing. And so that was really, really good. I have been appointed to the executive committee for the Western Riverside County, which I'm pretty excited about, and I know Catherine, she'll probably talk about it, but both of us are looking to get on some of the statewide committees. I want to touch finally, and I went to a lot of things, but the Riverside Conservation Authority, one of the things I want to point out is Norco is one of the founding members of that, and it recently went over to RCTC. And I just want people to know that what that is that is literally a land bank. And so if you build, let's say in a city, you have to put a certain amount of acreage into this land bank, and it's left in its wildlife condition. We also make huge purchases. And one of the things that we've been working on is with Congressman Calvert and Senator Feinstein is a huge federal piece of property that we're looking to purchase. It looks like that's going to be going through. But we have literally saved hundreds of thousands of acres, and that whole effort just in the last 2 years, we've purchased huge amounts of land. And I don't know if you've ever seen some of my social media posts, but it's just beautiful, wonderful land that will be there hopefully in perpetuity for our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren. Really, one of the things I'm most proud of being on council. And you have to give kudos to Congressman Calvert and Senator Feinstein because they have really driven this thing home from the beginning. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Catherine?
On September 14th, I attended the Navy Historical Properties meeting, which went very well. And September 15th, I also attended the Northwest Mosquito and Vector Control District meeting. It was a little business as usual, but you're always able to call Northwest Mosquito and Vector Control District. Part of your property tax funds that, and they'll come out if you have issues with any mosquitoes, bees, vectors, mice, anything like that. They'll come out. It's free because that service is already paid for, and we want to make sure that folks are getting rid of any standing water. They also have free mosquito fish. So if you have any standing water, horse troughs, things like that, you can get free mosquito fish to put in those, and they'll eat up the mosquitoes to keep our town free. Thank you.
Thank you. Ted?
Well, August was slow, but September picked it up again real fast. Riverside Transit Agency, the first saw on September 7th, attended that one. That was an orientation meeting to figure out how to be a director, even though I've been a director now for over a year. It's just government. That's the way it works. Then the RTA, and I really wanted, that was very interesting, our what we call a T-Now meeting. And that involves the cities of Corona, Harupa Valley, Norco, Eastvale, along with Wildemore and there. And so it was interesting this time because they did an update on the Hamner Bridge project. And a lot of things that we questioned on the people that were speaking was our build out on it and how it's going. And there's been some questions and I've asked of council members about the sound wall. They have done an extensive study on where that sound wall goes, how it was put in and everything. And it's done with the engineers by federal and state guidelines. That's what you get, and that's where it's going to go. So, I mean, we can't add to it because that would stop the project and just change things. So, but they were assured us that it's going to be correct. The other thing is that now that school's back in session, the Norco College campus, currently there's about 9,000 students enrolled there. Half of them are online. So when you talk about the traffic, just imagine if all those people were there. And the amount of vehicle traffic would be in and out. The bus routes are back and running. And they do have a special discount for students. So please, if you're a student up there, take advantage of that route. We still only have the one route going through the city. The other route along River Road has not been reestablished yet since COVID. So hopefully we'll get that back going again. And then in talking to the other cities, they all have the same problem, is how do you get from point A to point B in your city? So we're working on it. We're trying to figure out how to do it. There's federal guidelines, and most of this is federal money to do it. So that's some of the things we're talking about. So the next, then the RCTC, big deal there was the legislation that's coming down, who funds it, and all the criteria they're putting on us putting roads in. Even though we fund the roads, our county dollars, the state and the feds decide how to spend it. So we're trying to keep those to a point where it isn't going to overburden our staff with reports. And the biggest thing is they're finally getting the one section of highway, if you travel, and how to get from one part of the county to the other. They're going to try to finish the mid-county report And I don't know how many of you follow Supervisor Spiegel. She's out there right now. She's been in Washington, D.C., along with our other members of the Coachella Valley, trying to get funds for the railway. This is a cool project, and it's been it's on the books since 1990, is having a railway all the way from L.A. through our county into Indio and Coachella Valley. It's needed, and they're trying to get the funding for that now. We approved the plans and gone through it, and we'll see if that works. Again, maybe not in my lifetime, but for some of the young people out here, it's going to be a big transportation driver. Then finally, something came up, and for those you don't remember, we had the Western Community Energy, and I want to thank staff for posting about the issues there with our former energy partner. It was a JPA involving 6 other cities in our area. If you recall, we approved it with the idea we're going to try to do this and get everybody a 2% savings on their electric. In August of 2020, we had 8,800 potential residents, and 10% of you opted out and didn't want to be part of it. That's fine. And we were doing good. We thought we were, until Southern California Edison, the California Public Utilities Commission, pushed us back our startup date. So we got pushed back 6 months on our startup date, which means we didn't get income coming in. And so we didn't start until the 2020. And if you all recall, August of 2020, 3 days of extreme heat, and just you have to buy your power. It's called resource advocacy. You have to buy your power ahead of time. Unfortunately, when you buy it during that time when everybody else is clamoring, you're going to pay the market rate, and it's extremely high. These guys gouge you because you're not buying it from local people here in California. You're buying it from Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Utah, wherever they can get you their power. That's what you're buying it for. And they will stick it to you, and they did. So that hurt us. And then comes COVID. And if you remember, I sat up here and go, please pay your bills. The state said, the Fed said, you have to pay your electric bill. They didn't. So when you don't have any money coming in and you have bills to pay, and you're only a small CCA like we were, the Community Choice Aggregate, you can't pay your bills. And then that's what happened, part of that. And the other part is we were, our vendor that was supposed to buy us power underbought, and we just didn't have enough power. So rather than establish and get ourselves further in the financial hole, we, in May, we decided to go file Chapter 9. And then in June of 2021, we turned all our customers back over to Southern California Edison. Well, what happens is Edison also is in the same situation with that having enough power for these new customers. So they have the California Public Utilities Commission allows them to charge what is called a reentry fee. And that's what happened. That reentry fee, when we figured it out, was going to be $14.7 million. The Western Community Energy did pay for a big bulk of that, except for the $6 million. And that's under, when you file for bankruptcy, they call it dissolution. You have to have a terms of dissolution as to how your money's going to be spent. We also had other creditors we had to pay. So that was part of it, is that under the courts, the bankruptcy courts, they allowed us to pay the 60% of that reentry fee. The rest has to fall back on the ratepayers. And it's going to average about 5% of your bill. I don't want to give you an idea what it's going to cost here or there. It can be different for some people. It's going to be about 5% of that bill. But I just wanted you to be aware of that. If we had tried, if we didn't go bankrupt at the time, we had other people come and help us. They said we would incur major debt, especially if you follow the energy crisis and what's going on in the state and how they're short. There's just not enough power. And you have to understand, under CCAs, you try to use as much renewables as you can. That's the purpose of a CCA, is that it's giving the residents a choice. And there's just not enough. So we did the best we can. We apologize. That's what it is. if you have any other questions, Southern California Edison can direct you. There's a phone number they put out in that letter that you got. But I want to thank Laura, you and your staff for putting out that was very comprehensive. But that's what happened, and we tried. And the other cities are in the same situation we are. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. Oh, one other thing. Did you get that, Dana? I apologize. Okay. This Sunday, as far as the Veterans Committee, 6 p.m. up at the Veterans Park. It's Gold Star Mothers and Families Day. It's a national day, but it's going to be at 6 p.m. There's going to be a ceremony. Please, these are people that have lost someone in combat, lost someone when they're in service. So please, these are our Gold Star mothers, and it's put on by the local Blue Star chapter. It covers both Riverside and San Bernardino County, but it's at 6 p.m. on Sunday, and it's up there. And please join us and commemorate and honor these people. Like I said, it's honor, respect, and remember. And thank you.
Thank you, Ted. I had no regional board meetings here in the last few weeks. Had a slew of speaking engagements to outside groups and inside groups in town, and I just wanted to compliment and thank staff for all your support. Okay, let's move into consent calendar. Do we have any items that need to be pulled?
Mr. Mayor, I don't want to pull it, but I want to comment on 2H.
Okay.
And I just want to say how thankful we are for including that. It's on the commemorating Childhood Cancer Awareness Week. And our good friends at Compare Park Carpets are having their big thing for the Children's Hospital of LA, where that fund this Saturday is going to go to cancer research. So just, if that, I'll make a motion to approve the rest.
Not quite yet.
All right.
Do we have any public comments?
I have no public comments for the consent calendar, Mayor.
Okay. I have a motion and a second.
Please vote. Catherine? Oh, it did. There it goes. Motion passes unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Okay, let's just move into public comments. City Clerk?
Yes. Please limit comments to 3 minutes or less. The governmental body shall not discuss or act relative to any general public comment. First speaker is Mike Thompson.
Good evening, Mike.
Good evening. Personally, I got fired up today at the Community Spirit Award. That's just my opinion. But I'm going to put it off to inexperience. When I see the Community Spirit Award, I see that as the community of Norco. What you do at work and what goes on outside of the community of Norco is all fine and dandy, but I see this as a way that we recognize individuals, businesses, and organizations that make contributions to our community. So again, I think that in my view of this is what it was meant to be, and I'm just going to put this off as an experience, because running a social media site that's politically slanted and heavily censored currently, and being with the girls softball team doesn't, to me, quite rate with what other people have done for this community. And I just have a problem with it, and I just wanted you to know that I'm just going to figure, because you have very little experience, maybe you don't see it that way. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sigrid Williams.
Hi, Sigrid.
Hello there. How are you today?
Great, thank you.
I saw you drive by today. You were talking on your phone.
Yeah, illegally. I was getting orders from my wife.
Oh, that's important. Dana, can we start this again? No, I'm just joking. It's okay. I'm up here tonight to just tell you that Norco College just completed its first CERT class, with 5 Norconians earning their Community Emergency Response Team certification along with several other FEMA certificates. An evaluation was actually conducted after the class, and the overall rating of the class was excellent. According to those that attended, the most valuable aspects of the course included the disaster scenarios, the simulations, and exercise and working in teams. Our next class for anyone that would like to attend is on October 4th. It's 4 days in 1 week, and I have flyers with me, so feel free to see me afterwards. As stated numerous times, I am more than happy to help get this program off the ground, but it must go beyond simple 1-hour meetings with city staff every few months. There must be genuine effort on the part of the city. It's time for Norco to move forward with their strategic plan to implement a CERT program and utilize their volunteers before these potential volunteers look elsewhere. And now, speaking of volunteers. This city is built on tradition and volunteerism to keep it running. You, the city, not only did a disservice to its residents, but completely devalued the worth of dozens of volunteers, some still working full-time, retirees, and even former Norconians that came from other states to help work a 4-day event for thousands of Norconians to enjoy. Pulling out as a vendor at the last minute from the Norco Fair because of staffing issues and heat-related concerns is demoralizing. It was disrespectful towards those that helped make this city flourish, and then placing the blame on our city manager her second day in office is absurd. Let me share how your actions, or in this case inactions, as a city devalued volunteers in this town. The Norco Fair gross revenue is well over $200,000. Their net has been on average $130,000. These numbers are coming from people that are actually on the fair committee. Thousands of dollars have been paid to the city for its facilities. Dozens of volunteers donated hundreds of hours, upwards to 4,000 hours for this event. That equates to a monetary value of over $114,000 given to the city on behalf of their residents. Other nonprofits that were paid by the Fair Committee to further their mission, youth sports, Boy Scouts, devalued. Your residents worked 40 to 60 hours in the heat, some all 4 days, to ensure the fair was a success, and Norco as a whole could reap the rewards. Some of you worked it, some didn't. You need to think about your actions. This city needs its volunteer organizations, commissioners, advisors, committee members, etc. to further its goals and mission. You need to think about appearance the next time the city wants to close its doors on the people that help sustain it. If you want the residents of this town to support you, City Hall must support them, rally behind its customs and traditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Sigrid.
I have no further speaker cards, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to move into discussion and action items. Item 5A, appointments to Parks and Recreation Commission and Historic Preservation Commission. City Clerk.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Tonight we have 2 appointments to be made, one for the unscheduled vacancy for Parks and Recreation Commission and the Historic Preservation Commission, both with terms ending for June 2025. The Municipal Code Chapter 2.22.040 requires that each applicant must be a citizen of the United States, be a permanent resident of the city, be at least 18 years of age, take and file with the city clerk the oath required by Section 36507 of the California Government Code, and no felony conviction. The recruitment, public notice was released by the City Clerk's office on September 6, 2022. Application deadline was September 14, 2022. Applications were received and provided to the City Council for review. Applicants this evening will have up to 3 minutes to speak on their behalf. Please submit a speaker card to me so I can call upon you. And the Mayor and City Council will deliberate and make appointments to each commission via ballot. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you.
All good. Okay, I'll be handing out let me see if there's any speakers. I haven't received any speaker cards for this item as of yet. Five A, Mayor. The first one actually is Mike Thompson.
Good evening again. I just wanted to say that I wanted to support Jeff Cahan for the Parks and Recreation. I know that the commissions are a starting point for involvement, and your last appointment to that was somebody new. But when somebody who's pretty dedicated to a commission has to bow out because of a medical condition, I just kind of think that, he's ready to get back there. So I support Jeff Cahan for the Parks and Rec position. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Our next speaker is Bonnie Slager.
Hi, Bonnie.
Good evening. I go to the Parks and Recs Commission meetings. I know this old lady needs a new hobby, but it isn't the reason that I go because I have no hobbies. But I do know what a Parks and Recs commissioner does because I go to the meetings, and losing Jason was a real loss for the city. He was such an excellent commissioner and had knowledge not only in the animals but the sports. He was very knowledgeable in the sports and so on, and left some big shoes to fill. When I go to those meetings, I'm often 100% of the audience. And when I'm 50% of the audience, it's usually because Jeff is there. Jeff does come. And I would suggest to all the other applicants for the commission that are not selected that I'll save them a seat at the commission meeting if they'd like to come and see what the commission is about. They all talk about wanting to volunteer and help the city, and I would like to see everybody that applied for Parks and Recs Commission to come and to the commission meetings and find out about some of the volunteer opportunities and help out. So hopefully I won't be 100% of the audience in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Our next speaker card is Kathy and Don Kramer.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. My husband and I are here tonight on behalf of Jeff Cahan. We just wanted to speak briefly about what we think he would be as far as a park commissioner. Jeff is very active, as you all well know, in the city. Everything that we go to, he's there. He's very active on the Parade of Lights Committee, and he is an active member of Rural. And so consequently, we see him quite often, and those two activities are integral parts of Norco. And I just think that someone that is active as Jeff would also be a very good commissioner. I wasn't aware that he was a commissioner in the past, and unfortunately had to disengage, so to speak, because he was ill. I think it would behoove us to look at him very seriously and take him back as a commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Danny Acevedo.
Hey, Danny.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilman. It's nice to see all of you again. My name's Danny Azevedo. I'm here tonight to talk about Jeff Cahan. Excellent man. We have so many volunteers in this town that help out, and we have the bunch. This town is ran by volunteers, and Jeff's one of them. He's, through his years since he moved here, I've seen him on every different type of events all the time, pitching in, volunteering all the time. And he's already been on it, so he understands Parks and Rec, which gives him a plus right there, that many years of it, and chair. So I really recommend that you get him back on it. He did have an illness, and it's sad that you have to do that, have a break, but he's ready for it, and he'll give you 110% or more. And looking into everything and reading everything on his agendas, and really, he's the man for the job. And he's got a list. I was going to sit here and, well, I guess I could put some of them. He's been on the Veterans Memorial Committee for 10 years, 5 years as vice chair, Christmas Festival of Lights and Parade Committee for 10 years, member of NHA for 14 years, 2 years on the Board of Directors, member of Rural, 14 years, member of the LNCF, 8 years, Boy Scouts. He really knows the young people. He's been Boy Scout and a Scoutmaster himself for 12 years. And he's always, when you go to any kind of event, he's there. And I appreciate it. You really get a look at him and install him in that position. Thank you very much tonight.
Thank you, Danny.
Our next speaker is Jim Pollard.
Hi, Jim.
Good evening, council members. Well, there's not much left to say about Jeff Cahan, and that's why I'm here. He's been an inspiration in my life, in the youth in this community, the seniors, and had been on the Parks and Recreation before, and I think it would best suit our city if he was really seriously considered for this position at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Our next speaker is Bill Naylor.
Hi, Bill.
Good evening, council and mayor. I'm kind of sitting here listening to all these people talk about Jeff Cahan, and I'm going to mention a couple of things from my perspective. Jeff, I've known since I came to Norco, and as most of you know, I try to ride in most of the parades until my horse passed away here just this year, so I haven't been able to do that. But almost every parade that I've been in, Jeff's been out there early, marking the streets, helping get things organized. I go to the Parade of Lights. He's up there working up at the Nellie Weaver area. I've gone to so many functions over the years, and I try to help as much as I can. I just wish I could help as much as he has in the past, and I really think he'd be an asset to our Parks and Recreation Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Our next speaker is Larry Eckhoff.
Good evening, Larry.
Mayor, Council. I'd like to speak also on behalf of Jeff Cahan. I've been serving on the Veterans Committee along with him for many years. As far as I know, Jeff didn't serve in the Army. Did you, Jeff? He did not. The reason he's on the Veterans Committee is because he's a patriot and he loves our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Our next speaker is Larry Cusabano.
Mayor.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm here to advocate for Jeff Cahan. He's been on the committee before. Due to health and personal reasons, he had to back out. He's now healthy again. And I think that the council would be doing him an injustice by not putting him back on, and doing themselves an injustice by not having him back on the commission. As has been stated before, he is willing to volunteer almost any time he gets a chance to be there, to help out, and if you ask him, he'll do it. So I'm all for it, and I don't think that some of the things that I heard on the street should have any bearing on what he's willing to do. So if you're more than willing to look for better candidate, you can't find one. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Our next speaker is Mark Moore.
Hi, Mark.
Mayor, Council, I'm here for Jeff Cahan. He has helped me with volunteering on many occasions, and I can't see any reason why he would not work out to being a commissioner again if you choose to put him in that position. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Our next speaker is Mike Williams.
Mike?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council, staff. Appreciate the opportunity. And believe it or not, I'm here to advocate for Jeff Cahan. I don't know if you've heard of him or not. Jeff's a friend of mine. I've known Jeff for a number of years that I've lived here in Norco. The fact that he was the Parks and Rec Commissioner and 2 years as a chairman for 7 years gives him the foundation that he needs to do a fine job for this city, and he advocates for this city and the residents every step of the way. I've seen him at the multiple of the parades, out getting the streets ready, getting everybody in line, announcing and so on, which is a really good thing. I always look forward to seeing him out there. But the one thing that really stuck with me is when I was up looking at the Veterans Memorial for an event that we were doing, and Jeff was down there with Councilman Hoffman on his hands and knees, scrubbing the plaques, getting them cleaned up, making sure that they were presentable to the public and to these veterans that mean so much to us. So, just like everyone else, I support Jeff Cahan. I think it would be a great move to put him back in this position. I think the city of Norco and its residents would really appreciate you doing that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
And our next speaker is Michael Nesgodsky. I hope I said that right.
Hi,
Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Mike Nesgodsky. I've known Jeff for about 10 years. I met him through Boy Scouts. When you say Scouts, Boy Scouts in this town of Norco, who do people think of? Jeff Cahan. It's hard to follow what Danny and many of the others have said. He is such a great asset to this city, and especially to Parks and Recs. I feel that our town would be at a loss with not putting him back in Parks Recs. With his illnesses, he has bounced back 100%. He has really shown that he is in this. He dedicates himself to this town and to so many events and volunteers, and I'm proud of him, and I'm proud to know him. And if those of you who don't know him, you should take the time to get to know Jeff, because he is a great person. So thank you.
Thank you.
And our next speaker is Norva Williams.
Good evening, all.
Good evening.
That's a tough crowd to follow. Let's see. Don't do Jeff. No, I'm kidding. I'm here to support Jeff. He's just a major player with all of us that work in this town, love this town. I met him first through Scouts, through my grandkids years ago, and he's just every parade, all of our events, he's there. And the Veterans Committee, working up there on that. Anytime you need a speaking system or whatever, give him a call. He's there. Anytime we need him, he's there. And that's inclusive of when he was on the commission before. So the fact that he was on the commission and still did all of that won't detract from that. He will be able to completely do the job. So I'm for Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you, Norva.
Our next speaker is Stephen Akui.
Good evening.
How you doing, sir?
Good.
Yeah, I wanted to speak on Jeff's behalf tonight. And as I vetted Jeff, I received nothing but positive and loving praise about the man. He's the hardest working commissioner people have ever seen. how he volunteers his sound equipment at times, free of charge, for all events that Norco puts on. I found out that he and Kevin Bash were the original people who started the George Ingalls Veterans Memorial, which bears my son's name. And his son, Jonathan, was the first one to donate $1,000 for that memorial. And Kevin Bash told me he had to, gather millions more. A lot of help. Jeff ultimately needed a transplant, and instead of leaving an open seat, he stepped down. That is how important these positions are to him. I'm only told of him from others, not what I've witnessed myself. What I've seen with my eyes is a father who belongs to Grace Fellowship the same as I do. He shared with me his struggles that he had with liver disease and ultimately forced him to step down from the positions he held in love. That he's a Boy Scout leader and that Jonathan had received his Eagle Scout. And during his time of sickness, Jonathan also had some medical issues, and how his faith helped him when he needed it most. Who govern and represent us should be held by a higher standard of conduct than the rest of us. And I personally feel that everyone on the commission now represents that standard, and then some. I would just like to further it and see a man who also exceeds that standard be on the commission. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Gary Evans.
Hi, Gary.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, ladies and gentlemen, I too am encouraged by Jeff's dedication to this city, and wholeheartedly, as with so many people here before me, I encourage you to place him on a position where he continue to show his dedication and commitment and love for this town. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the next speaker is Jeff Cahan, who is an applicant.
Evening, Jeff.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. After Steve, I love you, man. Thank you for being here. I am absolutely humbled. Can't even speak. That the people in this town would step up when I asked them to speak on my behalf. And besides the people that were here this evening, I know that you've received communications from the likes of Linda Dixon, Pat Overstreet, Gary Schoen, Bobby Spiegel. I can't even remember the list, but the pillars of the community have stepped up to support me, and that's extremely humbling. And the only reason why these people are willing to stake their reputations by supporting my character and my reputation is because we've sweated together in triple-digit heat. We've worked the parking lots in the rain. We've done 16-hour days, setting up and tearing down, and setting up and tearing down, and setting up and tearing down. And when you spend 10 or more years with these people, John and Joanne Akins even, right? That's how you get to know people. That's how you build the friendships that I can rely on that came and spoke on my behalf tonight. So I appreciate the opportunity to be considered for the open seat on the Parks and Rec Commission. Of course, I think you know from my previous experience and from the testimonies of everybody that's spoke tonight and emailed you that you know that I will continue to do the job that I've done in the past. I will continue. I love this town, and there's no greater way to spend some free time but to make sure that this is a community that we can all love and enjoy. So thank you for your time. I appreciate your consideration, and one way or the other, I'm still going to be doing what I'm doing. And Ted, thank you for mentioning the commemoration on Sunday for the Gold Star families. Steve, we thank you. We thank your family and appreciate everyone that was here to speak on my behalf tonight. So thank you for considering my application.
Stay there. Do any council members have questions for the applicant? Well, I have one.
Yes, sir.
And notwithstanding that, your volunteerism, okay, no issues at all with that. We know how much you do. In this present time, okay, how will you define and what will your role be as a Parks and Rec Commissioner?
Well, as I've already explained, I've created relationships with a broad spectrum of residents and communities within the community, the senior center. I have relationships with my neighbor, Diane Hill. She runs Seniors and Pets. As my scout friends have spoken, I've got relationships with the youth in the scouting, and we obviously encourage them to volunteer. The Veterans Committee that I've been on, I have an outreach with the veterans. So my ability as a commissioner to represent the city and to represent those factions within the town that need addressing for special events, for the veterans, for the seniors, all the different things that I did previously, I simply feel that I can step back in, hit the ground running. I went to the meeting last week, so I already know what's on the agenda. So if I were to be appointed and I go to the next meeting, I will already be fully up to speed as to what's happening. And my 7 years of previous experience, I think I get along and I know all the Parks and Rec staff. I think I work well with everyone, and I will be able to just maintain and strengthen those relationships and be able to represent those groups within the town that the Parks and Rec Department has outreach with. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Jeff. Go ahead.
So thank you, Jeff, for all of your service all of these years for our city. We also received several emails with residents who were concerned about the role that you played in organizing a counter-protest in which several of our residents were harassed, assaulted. How would you respond to a resident who is concerned and who wants to know how is it that you're going to be able to respond to everybody, not respond to everybody, but listen to everybody and hear them, and be a representative for everyone in our city, especially given some of the things that you can find online that maybe you said or that were under kind of organizing posts, with calls for violence and things like that.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I'd really like to clear the air on that. I actually have prepared, I don't know if you'll allow me to play it, but I've got 3 minutes of audio of everything, not everything because I only had to narrow it down to 3 minutes, but I've got audio of the things that I said that day. And to be honest, I've also got printed transcript of an 8-minute video that Diane Markham took. And I'd be happy to give each one of you a copy of that transcript. When my rally started, the first thing I did was I invited Sheriff's Chaplain Phil Wozniak to come and pray with us. And when he prayed with us, he prayed for both sides. He prayed for the BLM group and he prayed for our group. And he prayed for peace and understanding, and I knew that there was going to be some differences of opinion, but prayed that we would be able to get along and not have any confrontations. That was the group I was a part of. Then when I spoke, and I've got, like I said, I've got the audio if you want to hear it, but I asked our group to be respectful. I asked our group to be peaceful. I asked our group to be hospitable. I asked our group not to shout over the group that was at City Hall. Let them have their say. I pointed out that we were proud Americans exercising our First Amendment rights, and that the BLM group were also proud Americans exercising their First Amendment rights. And I reminded the veterans that were in our group that they fought to defend the Constitution of the United States, which affords both groups the rights that we were exercising that afternoon. So if you've got proof of anything that I said that led to violence or was inciting violence, I would strongly disagree that anything that I could have said could be construed in any way as advocating violence. I would obviously was not there, to be honest, as an anti anything. I was simply there and organized a group to be pro Norco. The things that had been happening around the country, the violence that we had seen on our TVs, it just didn't seem right that we needed to have that brought to our peaceful town. And Ted Hoffman was singled out because of some comments that he made as a private citizen, not as a council member. And Ted's a friend, and I'm going to stand up for a friend when is being accused of terrible things like racism, and when our town and our council are being accused of racism. But I was there, and I was trying to keep at least the group that I had invited peaceful and honorable and respectable. And I've got, like I said, I've got the audio to prove everything that I said, and I'm not ashamed of anything that I said because it was all peaceful, it was all respectful. If you want to look in the How to Incite Violence manual, having a pastor pray over your group is probably not in that book. It was a hot day. I brought water for my group, and I also set a case of water on the grass in front of City Hall for the BLM group, so that when they got there after their march from Neil Snipes Park, if they were thirsty, there was going to be water there for them. Again, in the manual on how to incite violence, you generally do not provide water for your opponents. So I feel absolutely no regrets on anything that I did, on anything that I said. Clearly there were hooligans that came from out of town that caused chaos. I abhorred the violence that ended up happening. I certainly was not in any way connected to those people. It was awful. The town ended up being under a curfew for a number of days, which I don't think had ever happened in the history of Norco before. And it was a sad period that our town had to go through. But as far as my involvement, I can simply say that I had nothing to do with the violence. I was not inciting anything. I was perfectly respectable and asked for calm and asked for peace from the group that I was representing.
So without rehashing a lot of things, I would say that there are definitely accounts that would not be consistent. I was also there. We also had a pastor who prayed with us and who was with us as well. I just want to point out that, when we sit up here on the city council, we always have to think about the big picture. And we have to look at the reputation of our city and what message we're sending and what are the best choices for everyone in the city, and we have to make hard decisions. We have to think about moving the city forward. I was there that day. I was assaulted by a Norco resident. Several people were. Not everyone who was there was from Norco, I realize that, but there were a lot of Norco business owners, residents, volunteers who were there. And it's a painful part of our city's history, one that I think some of us are still healing from and trying to find a path forward. And definitely working on that. So as we look at appointing someone, those are different things that we have to look at and we have to take into account. And, regardless, we always want volunteers and open dialogue, and definitely want to move our city forward and have a community that is inclusive and that is safe for everybody. So thank you.
I appreciate your question.
Are there any other questions or comments? And, well, Catherine, I appreciate you addressing that. I'm starting to hallucinate because I was seeing an elephant in the room. And my issues.
Sure.
That I've had. And that, but we need to move forward. There was damage done and, impacted a lot of residents, Jeff. And you and I have had that discussion that, but
I hope that you can't seriously consider that my presence there in any way was an influence on those others that committed the violence. Nothing that I did or said that day could be misconstrued in any way.
I would take it as a difference of opinion. I mean, I'll always support that, everyone has the right, but sometimes the timing isn't right. And but I like to forgive. I'd like us to move forward. Those wounds go deep, and they need to heal. And I want to be open to that also. Just a little thing on your application, and you did agree to it. As much of this came up is on social media, so I want you to be aware of what the current active social media policy is for the city.
Correct, and also just to remind you that period of time I was not on the commission, so I had that freedom as a citizen to profess my opinions as freely as I could. Obviously, if I'm reappointed to the commission, I understand the duty and the requirements that would follow with that appointment.
Good. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Jeff. Anyone else? Thank you.
Yeah, I have to say something. What I saw, and, we were told not to be there, and so we weren't there. There happened to be 2 council people in the middle of it, of when it exploded. But what we saw was you on top of the hill, praying, singing the national anthem. That's what we saw. And I thought, wow, this is going to be okay. One of the things I have repeatedly told to council people and to residents, there was a resident in the city of Norco that stationed himself at a local business and orchestrated the gangs that came, orchestrated the guy from Chino with the ridiculous SS on his shirt. He orchestrated that, and he spent weeks orchestrating that. I saw that. Now, whether you get appointed or not get appointed, the rewriting of history is really angering me. And you had every right to stand on that hill. Now, what transpired happened down on Hamner. None of us saw that. Now, later, I saw it. I saw it going both ways, and I called every single Norco resident I could identify. And many of them I asked to please leave. The ones that particularly were yelling at women pushing baby carriages. But those are the goofballs. Those are the people that we don't. And then what would happen is Norco was painted with this strange brush. And the reality is, yes, I totally get wherever you go, there's going to be racism, there's going to be terrible things. But the truth of the matter is, I've been walking for civil rights before most of you were born. That's a fact. When that boy was killed at Centennial, I chaired the committee for the Corona Norco Unified School District on diversity. None of you were there. He took my seat on Park and Rec. Well, maybe a year later. And I just think, if you like Jeff, but don't blame him. I got an email here where they said, oh, he said all this stuff. I asked, can you show me where he liked this horrible post? I have yet to hear back from that person, but he made the accusation. We're not just talking about Norco here. We're talking about how are we going to treat people that speak out. Now, what happened to Catherine and that group was abhorrent. There's no excuse for it.
And I agree with that.
But there were a whole bunch of moving parts to this terrible thing that happened. And we're somehow putting the blame on one person. And there was a group of people that totally got out of hand on Hamner Avenue. So
yes, I never left the parking lot at the.
Well, Jeff, the whole thing was videoed. We watched the whole thing. And so it was a horrible incident that occurred. And the reality is we're already moving forward. We're already better for it. I mean, we're trying to do every possible thing we can. One, to show people what's already here. I mean, the reality is there are things about this community that already embrace. I can't help it if some people can't see it. But part of seeing it is you got to show up. You got to see the people. So I'm not going to say what you did was wrong. It was a horrible, tragic event with tons of moving parts. But you had the right to stand there. And I mean, what I saw, but some of the other people, was horrific on both sides. Please remember, folks, there were drones. There were drones. So the truth of the matter is not everybody was innocent on both sides. So I don't know how we're going to vote on this thing, and I do want to move forward. But truthfully, I think that was a horrible, but a point that moved Norco forward to reveal who we are and to change what we need to change, to identify, to bring it out. Usually, truthfully, you know what you do with racists? You just ignore them. That's what you do. And then if they become a problem, then you deal with them. But the truth of the matter is, a lot of racists, you marginalize them. You give them no power whatsoever. So I'm just sorry for this whole thing for a Park and Rec commissioner. You know, you've been an excellent Park and Rec commissioner. I mean, truthfully, you, me, Brian, your son, and Andy Akora, we built a memorial. And that's just the fact. And I did that with you, and I'm very proud of it, and I'm proud of a lot of things you do. So, do we have any other Park and Rec commissioner folks here tonight?
Any other comments or discussion? Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
My last speaker card is Kirk Knox. I have no other applicant speaker cards.
Okay. Good evening, Kurt.
Mr. Mayor. The City Council has the competence and judgment and integrity of its appointees and relies on these people for information. You're looking for a leader. A leader does not shirk responsibilities. A leader sometimes has to step up and take some responsibilities, whether it's their fault or not. That's part of becoming a leader. You want somebody that will accept responsibility. Rewriting history. Yes, terrible stuff did happen on Hamner, but it also happened in front of City Hall too. It wasn't just Hamner. So let's not rewrite history and say it was just Hamner, because it was in front of City Hall as well. Somebody said they should be held to a higher standard. Absolutely right. These people should be held to a higher standard. They should. There's a lot of good people on this. A lot of good people on the list. Who do you want representing Norco? Who do you want the face to Norco to be? There's a lot of good people. Not just one or two. There's a lot of good ones. Again, you all read my email. The City Council has the confidence in their judgment and integrity and relies on these people for information. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have no further speaker cards, Mayor.
Do we have any other no applicant cards?
No applicant cards and no correspondence from the applicants.
Okay. If you would like to prepare the ballots.
Can I clarify something,
but
Mr. Mayor?
I just wanted to just kind of make a comment here. So we have 9 applicants for Parks and Rec Commission and 3 applicants for the Historic Preservation Commission. And just speaking for myself, and I'm glad that we could air a lot of this out, that I try to make my decisions on for commission appointments on the person, but also on the applicant, that did they show up to speak? Sometimes that's not possible. Did you reach out with an email? Did you reach out with a phone call? And to be honest with you, that seriously, there's two other candidates here that I think would certainly hold their own and be very, very competent Parks and Rec commissioners. But they're not here. They didn't reach out. They didn't show up. And that's kind of what I have to weigh right now. Kevin?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. I was also aware of what happened in front of City Hall, but I didn't see anybody come from that particular group that joined that. I mean, by that point, we knew things blew up, and it became sort of a melee, which was inexcusable. But there were still two groups, because what happened is that you guys were followed, or whoever was in that I don't want to call it a protest group. The truth of the matter is I didn't think it would booger up the way it boogered up. But you were followed, and you were followed. That's why they couldn't go up 4th Street. And so I'm fully aware of what happened at the beginning, and I'm fully aware of what happened at the end. And the entire thing, there's a lot of responsibility in all directions that needs to be taken. One of the things that I think we learned a great deal about our community from that event. And so that's the positive that I take away from this. And to your point, Mr. Mayor, I absolutely agree. I'm concerned that, did any of the historic commissioners, are they here, any of them? Okay.
I have no other applicant speaker cards.
The Historic Commission, that just, since we're talking about that, that's a very important commission to the city of Norco, and there are certain requirements that have to happen. And technically speaking, and I've spoken to Bill Wilkin about this, there's actually only one commissioner that even remotely has the credentials that we need. And you need historians, you need archaeologists, you need people with credentials, because remember, our historic overlay lives and dies on us being a certified local government, and a key component to that is our historic commission. And that's one of the things that I'm hoping we can beef up is our historic commission. And what I could see, Mr. Chase, Dean Chase, was the only one I saw. I mean, one's a very long time resident, I grew up with him. The other one has experience with LNCF, but the only one that had credentials was Dean Chase. And those credentials are very, very important to that commission. We just haven't had the kind of applicants with those kind. We did in the beginning, if you recall. We had archaeologists, we had historians, we had planners, and that's what's needed to be on that commission. So, just put that 2 cents in.
Does council have any other comments?
Mr. Mayor, I do. And this is, you know what, Kevin made a good point about the Historic Commission. And I'm currently, who's it fall under now? Who does the Historic Commission fall under? It used to fall under Roger. Roger Grody had it, and I think Kelly took it. Who's got it now? Diane German has it? Jermaine has it.
Sees it for Dana, right?
Yeah, she is the clerks that meeting, and that it is under the city clerk's office too.
But who's the advisor?
Bill Wilkman.
Yeah, we have Bill
Wilkman.
Wilkman,
Okay,
and our
so we have a
consultant, Chuck Wilson.
consultant that's our advisor, and other than having a city staff that records it. So, Kevin, I'm with you. I look at the names of that and the people that we've had in the past there, and this might be one of those commissions we need to rethink. I'm not saying that there's nobody in there that's qualified, but I would like, now we have a new city manager, we can maybe take a time to look at that
and familiarize ourselves with how this commission, the makeup of the commission, maybe when they meet. I mean, they meet.
That's the big thing. Is
they
the
meet
4
at a
o'clock
weird
is
time.
very difficult.
So I would like us to perhaps put that to go back to city staff to look at this, because this has happened in the past. We've not had that many people wanting to be on that commission, and maybe we need to rethink the dates, the times they meet, just something. Bring it back up, figure out what we have, and the qualifications.
And the current commissioners, by the way, work for the most part very hard. They're working cataloging, doing things like that. So but you need somebody who is, like I said, an archaeologist, historians. I mean, we used to have Diane Stiller on there for years. She was excellent.
Yep.
So
you have to go to Utah to find her now.
Thank you. Me too. I didn't. Dana, if you have any questions on the voting or on the specifically historic preservation.
I do have a majority vote for historic preservation, so we will have to put that person into position, and then if you do want to bring back a report for looking at the historic, we would do that at a later time.
Would you report out the vote on
Correct.
both?
Yes.
Please.
So for Parks and Recreation Commission, 3 votes Jeff Cahan, 2 votes Amy Murrow. So Jeff Cahan has been seated. And for the Historic Preservation Commission, 2 votes for Dean Chase, 1 vote for Diane Collins, and 2 abstained on the voting. So Dean Chase will be seated for Historic Preservation Commission.
Thank you. Keep moving forward, or does anybody need a break? Okay. Okay, hang on a sec. Are you good now? Okay. All right. Thanks. All right. Okay, let's move into public hearings. City Clerk, please.
Order presentation for public hearing items, staff report presentation, council questions of staff, open the public hearing, public comment, close public hearing, and council discussion and action.
Thank you, Dana. This is item 6A. This is an appeal hearing, an appeal of the Planning Commission denial of conditional use permit 2022-04, Norco Old Town Market. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. It's a pleasure. Erica Diaz from the Planning Division. I'm here to present item number 6A on the agenda. The subject request is an appeal of the Planning Commission denial of a conditional use permit 2022-04, which was a request for approval to allow the sale of a full line of alcohol beverages, distilled spirits, for off-site consumption in conjunction with a 2,558 square foot convenience store. It's located in the commercial general zone at 4410 California Avenue. I do want to point out that the commercial general zone does allow beer and wine sales. It is permitted. When you intensify that use to hard liquor, you are required to have an approved conditional use permit. This is the site plan that was submitted to the Planning Commission. As you can see, the convenience store. It's located on the northwest corner of California Avenue. The Planning Commission on August 10th, 2022, held a public hearing to hear the request to allow the distilled spirits for off-site consumption, and after consideration of all the testimony, both oral and written, denied the request. 2 items of concern was that of sensitive uses, residential uses near the site, and based on the ABC data, there's an overconcentration of alcohol uses within the city of Norco. There are a number of findings required to approve a conditional use permit. 2 important findings are the public convenience and necessity, and to not adversely affect adjoining land uses. Those findings could not be made. This is an aerial of the area, which you can see pretty much surrounded by residential uses. Specifically within 100 feet is a residential use. The planning department staff is recommending the city council uphold the Planning Commission's decision and deny the appeal. That's concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, staff is here to answer them for you. I do believe the appellant is here. Yes. If you have any questions for them, I'm sure they would like to speak.
Okay. Does council have any questions for staff?
I just have a couple questions, just to make sure everyone's aware. So, per the census tract, the recommendations for ABC is that there are 2 on-site and 1 off-site?
There are, correct, that's allocated
and so
by
we're
the
over
department.
because we already have 2 on-site and 2 off-site.
Mhm.
And how many active alcohol licenses are there in the city?
At the time the report was done for the Planning Commission, it was 81.
81.
As of today, it was 85.
85.
Yes.
Thank you.
Kevin?
So why did ABC give them a license? By the way, it's really wonderful to see you standing there.
Thank you so much.
It's so nice. Thank you, Alma. Thank you, City Manager, for letting her come out of that shadow room. So
It's a
very
pleasure.
nice to see you.
Thank you very much.
How did they get how did ABC? Normally they're much more strict.
Yeah, so ABC, they still have a pending license. The state alcohol beverage control cannot activate any license without approval of a CUP. So it'll stay pending unless she withdraws it or provides an approved conditional use.
So how did they get
They don't have it. So
Was
it's
no, was
still
it, I
pending.
mean, how did they get the option to get it with so many licenses? Were they one of the lottery winners?
I believe so. They can confirm that, but I do believe they won the lottery. So once you are picked for the lottery,
Can you
with
explain the
ABC,
lottery just in case people don't?
basically just putting names and stuff. People can submit applications and they pick it randomly, and if you win it, then you have to file an application, sign affidavits, do fingerprinting, do a whole background check, but you still have to go through an investigation with ABC. One of their investigations is the approved conditional use permit. In this case, she is within 100 feet of residential uses, so she would have to provide some kind of non-interference letter stating that that type of use would not interfere with residential uses or any type of sensitive uses that are within 100 feet. So they keep that pending, and they don't activate it until the city has determined whether or not we would allow it. They'll still let you file the application, but they won't activate until you have an approved conditional use permit.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ted.
Yeah, and I, looking through the application, there is about 8 pages of people that have gone ahead and write on this petition regarding that. Some of them just have phone numbers. Some of them have out-of-town addresses. Were we able to vet any of these?
That was submitted from the applicant, and I would assume she would be able to speak in regards to that. I only called a couple of them, but I didn't receive a response.
Okay.
Well, and if I can add, Councilmember Hoffman, the petition, the applicant's certainly welcome to submit the petition, but the petition's not in staff's view germane to the decision for us as staff and the recommendation. It's really with regard to the overconcentration and to the other issues that Erica noted. So no, we did not actually go through and look at these addresses or
Okay,
do
I
any
just-
verification.
Just, it's one of those things. I'm just trying to vet.
Sure.
And then there is a residence there, and I noticed the planning commission also noted that there was the overabundance of other alcohol sites, off sites on there.
Sure.
And it was true the applicant was not at the planning commission. According to your, I'm just looking at the notes.
The applicant was not there, but the applicant's family was there.
Okay,
Yeah, they were there.
Just checking that.
Sure.
The minutes I have here. That's all. Thank you.
Can you speak to the progress of the project? That going by physically and then by the photographs, there hasn't seemed to be much activity been going on there for a few months.
I agree.
I'll say at least from July.
I'm
And
not sure if
it's
they're
still fenced.
Yeah, so they were doing TI work.
Mhm.
I am not sure where it is, but it comes to the planning department, and I generally do the plan check, so I haven't seen it.
Okay.
In a couple months.
All
so.
right. Well, the applicant
Yeah.
can answer that for me.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This is a public hearing. I'm going to open the public hearing. Do we have any public comment?
Yes, Mayor, we have Donithia Santamania. Sorry.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm actually a family member of the applicant as well.
Mhm.
And if you are Norco residents, you have probably seen us doing construction work on the roof, pounding a hammer and all that. Yes, construction has been stopped, but we are pending and hoping in hopes of achieving the ABC liquor license for the full line. We are hoping that this is actually going to do a huge contribution. And hopefully you hear from the other residents as well that live within the 100 feet of the store location. So maybe you'll hear from their feedback. But as also a Norco resident. I've been living here since I was 3 months old. I don't know anything else, so I hope that this contributes to the Norco growth and all that. Okay, thank you. I'm for the full line alcohol.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Does council have any questions of the applicant?
I'm not the applicant.
Or the
I'm
applicant.
a family member.
Family member? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Mohammed Jar.
Good evening.
Hi everyone. I would love to clear something to the city and to you about the store. The store is not a liquor store, it's a market, right? And they has like only not even 5% of alcohol. The reason of us, we decide to need this license to be one-stop market. That's the main reason for us. We need to be like one-stop to serve and serve all the city of Norco, because we've been here for a really long time, over 25 years, and we decide to invest and open this market. Is not a liquor store, number one. Number two, about the 100 foot, about the neighborhood, right? It's a couple of liquor store in this city, and they are new, they are very close to the neighborhood. It's the same, about like 100 foot. Plus, since when we applied the last time and we get declined, until now, it's another 4 liquor store, it's open, right? Thank you so much. Thank you.
Can you answer the question then on when construction activity is going to progress? Are you in that position? Okay. If you'd give your name to the clerk, or do you have a card, Dana?
I'm not sure. What's the first name? Adriana.
Adriana.
Here we go.
Okay.
I have it.
Good evening.
Good
My name
evening.
is Adriana. Yes, we are 98% ready to go. We actually had and conduct an open house early this year where we have all the residents, or most of the residents around, because they told us, oh, I live here, I live there. And they were all very happy and excited and signed that list that we presented to you. We are owners builders, so we actually build with our own hands, so we go slow. I'm the mother, so for me, the most important, the rush and make money with this business, the reason is to teach my younger children, my young children, some young, well, they're not so young now, but they're, you know, and I appreciate so much the chance that I have to teach them that they needed to work hard and pursue their dreams, and if they are to give the last drop of their sweat, they will make it, and that's what that's what is important. Besides, I know the public want me to open. They banging me to open. Every time I see them, hey, you got to open. Hey, they agree. We are trying to make this store the one stop that for the neighborhoods that will serve it. Because our first commandment is not making money, is serve the public, provide them the security. And also, we're very proud to be part of the economical growing of Norco. We are very proud. And this is not the first business we have opened. We arrived here and back in '98 when I was only 20. I was able to buy in Norco, which I appreciate so much, the city. Since we bought 4 more houses, and I always say that we were the first one flipping houses and were able to sell when no one wanted those houses because they were very bad. We were willing to work on it. And I teach my children to do. Me, myself, I can do plumbing, I can do cutting, and people have seen me on the roof working because that's the kind of people. We love the America, and we know the America only builds with the strong people that wanting to work. And I don't know, you have more questions, but...
No, that's fine. Does council have any other questions for the applicant?
One more thing I'd like to say, since I have a 2 people wanted this service. Please do not ignore the people in Norco. They wanted to have a store that they can provide everything they have. And we are wanting to provide the secure, to be able to sell this alcohol with no disturbance to the neighbor. People already see the sign, people know what we're doing, and they are the most happy are to be open, and we are trying to open as soon as possible. So after tonight, we'll concentrate all our efforts to open the store, whether we have been approved or not. But we're never going to give up. We're going to follow to get this the way we want, and the public decide.
Thank you.
The next speaker is William Henning.
Good evening.
Here, Council. I've been resident of Norco now since 1976, and I have countless memories of businesses attempting to open in this city that have had nothing but problems, including myself at one time. Now, the history of this city is one of horse community. People pursue the American dream. These people are trying to do that. Okay, now as far as, what did you say, 85? I'm sure that sounds like a big number. It's the American way, competition. Allow them to open up, maybe they won't make it because there is so many liquor stores. But the location of this place, there should be no problem. It was, at one time, a Circle K. They sold alcohol. Did you have a problem with them? No, it's a big corporation. These people are trying to pursue the American dream, and you're not going to allow it, especially when it'll bring money to this city. Property behind this building has been empty for, what now, 30 years? So forget about the residents there, because there isn't any. The neighbors to the right of them, facing California, they don't have a problem. Across the street is a hay business. I don't think they have a problem. There was no problem at all when it was a Circle K. It was my upholstery shop at one time. That was okay, because I didn't sell alcohol. But there's plenty of people and businesses in town that sell alcohol. Competition will weed out the good ones and destroy the bad ones. So allow them that opportunity at least.
Our next speaker is Angel Sanchez.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm a nephew to the applicant. I'm not a big public speaker. I'd just like to say that I love all the small families in Norco. I love small businesses, someone that walks around a lot and gets to know people on a day-to-day basis. I like my aunt a lot. She's a really good person. I know if she wants to do something for this community, it's for the community, not for herself, because she could be making money off of anything in this country, and she could do it well. So that's all I'd like to say. I support my aunt, and I support her business. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Monica Agana.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm just here as a resident. I live here. I've lived here for 6 years, and I'm proud to be a resident here. I work here also, so I'm also proud that my job is here. I support the business that she wants to do, and it's nice, like he said, just to have one place where you can buy, whatever you need, market, and if it's alcohol that you want, then we're all adults, that's why there's rules. That's why, and on a personal note, I've known her for 6 years, and if anything I've seen in this lady is she's a hard worker, she's honest, and if anybody is gonna follow the rules and respect the city, it's gonna be her. Because honestly, I'm telling you, I'm nervous. She has brought up these kids who also work hard, and I've seen it with my own eyes, and she's not my personal friend. I've just seen it, and I've told her that. I admire her as a strong woman who makes me proud to be a woman. So, yeah, that's what I'm asking for. I support her.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Eddie Casares.
Good evening.
I've been a resident here for like 6 years too. Very hardworking people, and with like my own eyes, I've seen it. Hard worker, her kids, and I would like to see her dream come true. You know, God willing, I would like to see that. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Miguel Santamaria.
No, I think we could just take it. It'll be a positive, correct? In favor of.
And we have
Okay.
that.
Understood.
The next speaker is Richard Dobbs.
Good evening.
Mayor and Council. I'm here to support the Santa Maria family in their quest for the alcohol license for their new store. I've been a neighbor of the Santa Marias for more than 3 years now, and I got nothing but respect and their hard work and family, and they've been kind and respectful to me through that whole period of time that I've known them. If I asked them for something, they would help me out, and without that license, I think that business would really take a beating, and it would be hard to thrive without that license for them. And I'm in support of them to have that license. So thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Bill Naylor.
Good evening again, Bill.
Again, thank you. I want to applaud the family for trying to put a business in town and get it going. That site's been vacant for quite some time. But I did attend the Planning Commission meeting, and if I understand correctly, the conditional use permit is really the only reason they're having to go for it is because they want to sell distilled spirits. It does not preclude them from selling beer and wine. The distilled spirits was the thing that I think was what got the Planning Commission and the general public a little bit concerned with it. I may be wrong in that, but that was my understanding. The business, I think a nice store there would be great. And since they were talking about the alcohol was going to be 5% of their business, I'm going to think most of it would be beer and wine, probably not that heavy on the distilled spirits. Maybe I'd recommend that they not get that part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
And the last.
Mayor, if I may, can I confirm
Yes.
just so that we're clear? Yes, the issue here is only the CUP with regard to distilled spirits.
Correct.
Beer and wine is allowed by right in this zone, so that's not a question here. Just the distilled spirits.
Correct. Dana?
Yes, the last speaker is Mike Thompson.
That answers
Mike?
my question.
Okay.
Yes, that was a Circle K. Circle K only sells beer and wine. Alcohol is being thrown around kind of loosely, but liquor, whiskey, is a whole different animal. So, thank you for saying that.
Thank you.
I have no further speaker cards, Mayor.
Okay. Close the public hearing and bring this back to council for discussion and action and any other questions of staff. And I have a question for staff, if I may, without going through everything again. The two residential properties behind this property that have been abandoned for years, what's the zoning on that?
It is A1.
So that, okay, so that isn't just an A1
Yes.
20 or A1
A1 20.
non-conforming? Yes, directly to the west.
20.
Okay. Okay. That's
That it?
my only question. Yes,
Okay.
thank you. Okay, does council have any discussion, questions? Catherine?
I just have two more questions that came out of the comment. What are the ABC consensus recommendations based on? Could you elaborate a little bit on that? So the fact that we're over in terms of
Can
the
you
liquor
repeat that? I'm
license. So the recommendations, right, from ABC per census tract for this census tract are 2 on-site and 1 off-site licenses, and we're already over those.
Yeah, we have 2 on and 2 off now.
Is there a way for you to give some background on where those numbers come from? How does the ABC determine that that's the number that's appropriate for that piece of our city?
Yeah, so ABC separates by census tract based on population of that area. And with that population, I think it's over 2,000 off the top of my head over that census tract. They allocate 2 on and 1 off. We currently have 2 on and 2 off. I think the off-site is 1 off-site for beer and wine, and the other one is full line. So even though they allocate the 3 licenses, even though we have 4, they still will give you a license. It depends on the city. So it's left up to the city to make the determination whether or not you want it in your city.
Right, okay. And my second question was, when the staff report came out, it said there were 81 active alcohol licenses, and you said that now there are 85.
Yep.
Are those for restaurants? Because restaurants have the right? Like restaurants can
Oh, I
serve
believe-
alcohol spirits as part of their.
I can get back to you, but I do believe 2 are off-site beer and wine. And
Okay.
1 is for a sit-down restaurant.
For a restaurant.
Yeah. So
Okay.
1 is on-site, and I believe 2 are type 20s, which are beer and wine.
Okay. Okay.
Off-site.
Okay, thank you. And then just my other question, I think that council really has to deliberate, right? Is there a line for where we draw a line on how many of these licenses do we allow for in the city, right? We're not that big of a city. 85 seems sufficient. It certainly doesn't preclude them from selling beer or wine. And so I think that's the question that we have to decide. I don't doubt that, these business owners would do a great job, would follow the law, would be wonderful in contributing to our community, but we have to look at the big picture, look at kind of what's going on everywhere, and a CUP will stay. So this is a decision that's made for the long term as well.
So if you're wanting to continue on discussion on this, as long as I can remember, we've been out of compliance for years, and we've always exceeded that amount, and we've always just keep pushing that envelope. Okay, and Kevin, it goes back to when Ross Cooper was our lieutenant. We've been out of compliance, and so a lot of you know it's been a long time.
City attorney's fault.
Yeah, always.
So he's not enforcing the codes.
And probably before him, yeah. So,
can you use a microphone, sir?
The ABC adopts regulations and applies them statewide. But that's why they allow a city to make a determination about whether or not they file a certificate of necessity, whether or not it's going to impact the neighborhood where there is the proposed use. But ultimately, it's up to the city, and Norco has been, quote, out of compliance probably since it was incorporated. Because you got a bunch of them at the time, remember, and not much population. Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess my point being on that is that, I appreciate the applicant's investment in the city. I appreciate that planning commission, planning staff always focus on the success of businesses. Okay. And I like that we have that attitude. But in this case, myself, I can't make the complete findings, and this is because of the 100-foot mark, on how that will adversely affect the neighborhood. So that's my opinion
and in
on
the
that.
past, Norco Council or Norco Planning Commission has turned down applications for conditional use permits for distilled liquor for that reason.
Right, and that's the way I look at it. If you can make the findings, great. In this case, I can't make the findings. Ted?
Yeah, thank you. I brought this up about the over number of distilled spirits and alcohol licensing before, and I'm glad you guys are doing a better job of tracking them. I apologize. I like what you did on this last one. If you recall, on Hamner Avenue, when the mobile station wanted to bring in distilled spirits, no one checked. And yes, competition was a thing. It was going to say, hey, it's competition, it's a fair market, we'll see what happens. Well, I'm sorry, but after working for the Sheriff's Department, been in law enforcement for 29 years, I worked in 2 cities where they didn't check the number. John, you were in Lake Elsinore back then, and there were so many liquor and, distilled spirits locations over the number in an area. It was a problem. It was an issue. I worked the city of San Jacinto, again, where distilled spirits were sold in areas that had a commercial business just like this in the middle of a residential area. And it caused problems. Seriously, the response times we had. And like Mr. Penny, I've been here. I remember going to that Circle K when it was on California. This kid would just go through there, stop in there. And there was beer and wine. They sold it because it just wasn't very profitable. Circle K got rid of it. It was a store they closed when they were doing their consolidation and downsizing. But we have had several, and this is citywide, applications. We have a Circle K sitting right over here off 4th Street. It's in the middle of a residential area that sells distilled spirits. Should never been done, not in a residential area. And that's my problem with this, is it's in a residential area. I understand them wanting to make have their market, have a full line of things for people to buy, full deal. Doesn't mean you have to buy distilled spirits. You can get without the CUP, and you can sell beer and wine without it. So, that's my feeling on it. Is if you want to make this thing go, it's also a true road that's traveled, and yeah, you can get there. You get your 6-pack, you can get your bottle of wine, but you may not be able to get your Jack Daniels at the same time. So, I'm looking out for the other businesses in town, but I'm also looking out for the residents. Is that, do we need another business in a residential area that sells distilled spirits? And I'm going to say no. So, my feeling.
Thank you, Ted. Any further discussion? Yeah, Kevin.
Maybe you can. Do you guys own the old Dick White? Those houses along there on 6th Street? Is that your property? On 6th Street, you have the old radiator shop, and you own the houses there. Okay. Well, I'm afraid I agree with my colleagues, but what I most agree with, unfortunately, for the applicant, and I actually want to help you, but in looking at how the Planning Commission put together their decision and how the staff put their decision together, my sense is there's a kind of a new, more comprehensive look that I really like, and I just can't get around their finding. So if I'm hearing right, I think there's a consensus here. I too am concerned about the residents, but the Planning Commission and the staff, they did everything they could to find findings, and they couldn't find the findings. And I think the discussion was, in my opinion, it was excellent. So in this case, I really want to support the Planning Commission's findings.
Okay, the recommendation is to uphold the determination of the Planning Commission to deny conditional use permit 2022-04.
Motion to approve the denial.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Please vote. There you go. Motion passes unanimous.
Thank you. Does anybody need a break? It's 9:15. Good? Okay. We'll move on to item 6B, ordinance number 1097. Hi, Alma.
Good evening, Mr.
How
Mayor
are
and
you?
members of the City Council. This is agenda item 6B, and this ordinance before you is ordinance 1087, which is a city-initiated proposal to extend the existing moratorium for 10 months, 15 days on the submittal and or approval of new entitlement applications for the construction of industrial and warehouse building. As the City Council is aware, back on August 17th, 2022, the City Council adopted a 45-day moratorium on the new entitlement applications for warehouse and industrial buildings. That moratorium is due to expire, October 1st, unless extended by the City Council. And per the state statute, the ordinance can be extended at the approval of the City Council. In report, as far as a summary of what staff has done and what's been in process in terms of the moratorium, as I noted, on August 17th, the City Council adopted an urgency moratorium on these type of land uses for 45 days in order to protect the public health, safety, and welfare. At the meeting, the determination was made that there was a need to address and distinguish or define the various types of industrial building forms, and without additional regulations, impacts on truck traffic in the city would more than likely increase. During the moratorium period of 45 days, city staff began looking at our existing regulations in terms of these type of uses, and it was determined that existing regulations do not address any of the concerns that were brought up by the City Council. And therefore, the regulations must be amended. Future zone code amendments are going to be necessary to address the concerns that basically brought on the moratorium. And staff anticipates completing those amendments to our existing code in 2023. And for that reason, staff is recommending that the moratorium, extending the moratorium, be approved for 10 months, 15 days, so to allow us time to further analyze, research, develop appropriate standards for adoption by recommendation by the Planning Commission for final adoption by the City Council. With that, I will conclude. There is an ordinance before you that states pretty much the reasons and for the extending of the moratorium. And with that, I conclude. John is also here to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alma. Does council have any questions to staff? Ted?
So, been 45 days on this thing, and now you're asking for 10 months more.
Correct.
That's a year.
A little under a year, correct. Well, including the 45 days, yes.
Yeah, it's a year.
Yes, that's correct.
So, how much work has been done since we initially did this?
So what staff is doing at this time, we have our existing ordinances as far as the M1 zone and the Gateway Specific Plan.
Excuse me. Can we have quiet, please, on the thing? I have to deal with the air conditioner and almost light voice, so thank you.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
I'll try to speak a little louder. So what we have our existing ordinances that need to be looked at. So we've taken a look at what we have. in looking at the concerns that were expressed by the city council, our current M1 zone and the industrial district of the Gateway specific plan does not address what the concerns that led to the adoption of the moratorium. So we have to have time to be able to look what we have and start making plans to see what is necessary to address the concerns. It will be necessary to amend the code. So that is going to take staff to come up with solutions to address the concerns of the moratorium and to be able to present them to the Planning Commission. And that may take back and forth, maybe a couple of meetings or so to come up with recommendations, appropriate recommendations to present to council for adoption. And I think Lori had something that she would like to add.
City Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to add, the statute lays out these moratorium extensions, right? So the 45 days, then the 10 months and 1 day. So I can tell you that I don't think it will take 10 months. We've had inquiries from some folks in the development community about our timeline, and we're committed to move this forward quickly, but this is not something simple to do it's going to take a little bit of analysis. We're going to need some assistance from some folks. So to bring forward some ideas that for commission and for council's consideration. So I can tell you it won't take 10 months, but 45 days is a blip, right? So it will be, I'm going to guess within 6 months, and I'd like to say it sooner, we'll be back to you with some proposals for your consideration and discussion.
And I appreciate it, because that's kind of what we talked about before when we first did this. We were looking at about 6 months, and now you're throwing this 10-month in it. That just seemed a long time.
The statute just requires those timelines. I'll let John elaborate, but that's just the way
Well, I understand. I thought we were going to have to do this 3 or 4 times for the 45 days, but then when you come up with 10 months.
Yeah, you do 45 days, and then you can extend 10 months. You can't do another 45 days. Yeah.
So the statute requires us to go either that 10 months or the 22, like she said.
Yeah, exactly.
And ultimately, if something happens sooner than that, then
that's fine.
Then the moratorium goes away.
All right. That just initially when you talked about the first time was going to be coming back every 45 days and doing this still with staff. So that's.
I mean, you can have staff come back and give you a report about where you stand.
No, I don't want to have it come back. I just the idea of pushing this back a whole year, and I expect to see it sometime mid 2023. I mean, that's reasonable.
Yes.
All right. That's all the question. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Hearing none at this time. Open the public hearing. Dana, do we have any cards?
We have no speaker cards on this item.
Thank you. Public hearing's closed. Bring it back to council for discussion.
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance number 1087, extending the existing moratorium for 10 months, 15 days on the submittal and or approval of new entitlement applications for construction of industrial and warehouse buildings.
Second.
Under discussion. When we talked about this previously, take your time, do it better, do it right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimous.
Thank you. Item 6C, ordinance number 1088, first reading, amending Norco Municipal Code, Section 5.36, Bs.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of City Council. Before you tonight is a proposed amendment to the Norco Municipal Code, Section 5.36 apiaries, to modify current beekeeping requirements on residential properties. Here tonight is Animal Control Superintendent Melvin Sparks III to present the proposed amendments.
Evening, Melvin.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council and and my fellow staff members and wonderful Norco residents and visitors. Today I want to present to you the ordinance number 1088 for apiaries. At the September 1st of 2021, City Council reached out to staff to modify the Norco Municipal Code to encourage beekeeping. City Council desires to promote a proper and safe operation of urban apiaries and beehives on residential properties, and support local ecosystems to pollinate plants and crops, as well as opportunity to generate homegrown honey. With that, there must be practical and enforceable requirements on apiaries to ensure that the health and safety of the public is clearly documented, and homeowners do not allow the apiaries to pose a public nuisance. Although there is an existing ordinance, with that ordinance, the large offsets restrictions make it difficult for most residents to have an apiary on their property. The offsets create a significant burden, even for residents with large lots, such that very few residents would be able to participate. What staff has done has actually reached out to a professor who is at the UC Riverside, who is Boris Baer, and he is a department entomology for that area, who is an expert in reviews and guidance on the amendment. Professor Baer provided his overall support of the amendments and the ordinance. As you see in front of you, there are some amendments that we're going to go through, which is the reduction in the offset distance of beekeeping and other administrative modifications to ensure proper processing of the apiary, application, inspection, and enforcement. The parcels that would be allowed are all in the agricultural zone. The only persons that can participate are property owners. The application processing through community service and finalized through animal control services. Participants are required to obtain a business license for sales and no aggressive or defensive bees. At this moment, staff recommends adopting Ordinance 1088, amending the Norco Municipal Code Section 5.36, apiaries to modify beekeeping requirements on residential properties, approve Code Amendment 2022-05, and schedule a second reading on October 5th, 2022. With that, I conclude my presentation to you. If you have any questions and concerns, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, Melvin. Good job. Any questions for staff? Kevin?
And actually, this is also for Robin, too. So with the E program, I noticed that it's just a question. One of the things we've thought about doing is that somebody who is a senior may be able to have somebody who grows food in their backyard. Is this something that we should include? So if somebody raises bees, should we be able to set up that situation so that a property owner who has a half an acre behind their house, or an acre or whatever it is, a large lot, should we keep it to the owners, or should we open it up to somebody? Or are bees just such a, I know nothing about bees. They used to be all over Norco, but I'm just wondering if the EAT program, if somebody wants to raise bees, would we do that through a CUP? Is that advisable?
I'll let Melvin answer, because him and I had that discussion a few weeks ago about tenants versus property owners. So
my recommendation is for it to be property owners, and the only reason being is I deal with enforcement daily. I am also a tenant, and I do see this a lot, even with me being a tenant and dealing with a lot of tenants. A lot of times their care for the property or care for the rules are not always the best. So enforcing and then getting people to follow the rules and do the right thing is a little bit difficult. It's a lot easier to deal with a property owner to get them to do the right thing, because most actual property owners want to do the right thing.
Well, that maybe, can I ask a question? So could I, as a property owner, though, I own the property, have somebody keep bees on my property?
The application is only up for the
Okay.
property owner.
Thank you.
Ed?
Okay, that goes back to my picking this thing apart a little bit. On your person in your definitions on page, I think it's 2. Yeah, page 2. You're saying a person means any individual, firm, partner, or a joint venture, association, or corporation. Okay, there's no link to the property in your definitions of the person. So are you referring to the person as the owner or the person as the one who's operating it?
The
I'm just
person.
throwing that in there, and that's going to be John and looking at this because there's no ownership on the land or the property, just like he's saying. It has to be the owner.
If I may, it's in a different section. It's in 5.36.040, section F. It says tenants may not operate.
Right, but there's no definition on the word tenant either. It just refers to the person on your definitions. I'm talking about definitions because when you come to the tenant, you just said it's going to be a tenant won't be able to do this, but we don't define a tenant. So it's like Catherine's question, who can, are the tenant, can you allow it? I'm just trying to prevent something to happen, so we clarify our definitions of what is a tenant.
Well, or the flip side of that is the intent to limit this to owner occupied?
Yes, that's what you just said.
Then we should say owner occupied.
Okay, so that's what I said. That's a clarification on your definitions of who's who. Because you used the part of that ordinance that was written in 72, so it didn't look like it was cleaned up. And then I'm going to continue on this one. On that same page in the section next to it, it says you can't operate an apiary without first obtaining a permit from the city council. But that's not what your verbiage says. You're going to the community service people, community services, and not the city council.
Where are you? I'm sorry.
On the next page, page 2, in the bottom paragraph. 5.36.03, permit required. Did we just fail to clean that one up or update it? So that just needs to be updated, correct? Correct. Okay, I'm just going through this. We're going to have to vote on it. I want to make sure it's correct. I'm anal about that. So, we already talked about the tenant to get a definition of what a tenant is. And on the bottom of that page 3, we're going here, the director of community service or designated representative upon, shall issue a permit to the applicant to operate an apiary within the city of Norco. If it finds proposed operation of apiary will not contrary to the public peace, health, safety, and welfare of the city. Is there any hearing or a chance for a neighborhood or the public to have input on that?
You know what? Give me a moment. Let me see. Repeat it.
Are we going to allow the public or the neighbors or any type of a hearing or any type of input from the neighborhood from somebody putting an apiary on their yard?
No.
In your approval process?
I'm sorry. At this point in this, as it stands, there is not that arrangement. However, if there is a permit issued and there are problems that from the neighbors are hearing, then Melvin would take that as a complaint and would investigate that.
Okay. Is that standard for operations of anything like that? I'm just asking. Is it standard?
That is standard.
Okay. I just ask because those are things that are going to come up. And then you're going to figure out what the fee is. Do you have any idea? I see Lisette sitting back there. What this fee would be for the permit application inspection? I know what you referred to it, and it's going to be identified in the city's fee selection. So we have any idea what this would cost us? We're going to recover cost?
That would be a part of the fee schedule that we already have in place. And as you know, the fee schedule changes most of the time every year. It will increase. But that's the same thing as our other applications. whenever
Okay.
we do inspections. Same as for our CUP. Right now it's currently about 145, 144. So if that change, if that increase, or if that stays the same, then that's what the fee would be.
So we're going to recover the cost.
Correct.
Okay. And the next section, this may sound stupid because I'm not a bee person, except I know I've been stung 3 times and I've swelled up all the time. So, and I don't want to get stung again. 5.36060, the conditions requirement. I mean, this sounds, I know, Michelle, you and I talked about it. You're talking about in paragraph A, their flight. How do you control the flight of these bees? Seriously, I mean, I'm asking the question because you're indicating that the owner has to control the flight.
So I will actually answer that one. It's going to be a little crazy. So most of the properties, as you know, I've been here 9 going on 10 years. So most of the properties in the A1 area, they open or face out to the public right away. So when the owner places the beehive or the, guess you would say the structure, the box, once they place that area, they will put the opening towards that 100 feet from the public right away. Now with bees is crazy thing, what we learned from Boris and a few others, bees actually take off as the same as a plane or, you know, or like a runway. So if you give them that runway or that stretch, then they will take off and fly off that direction. I believe it be, I was stunned just as much as Michelle was.
It's just weird. And then on the following on C, and who counts and who tracks the number of hives that are going to be out there?
Wonderful Norco Animal Control Services will do that.
So that's going to incur other costs.
That will, but that's no different than the same thing when we do
The horses and the dogs and things like that. Okay, these are questions I'm asking because I don't want it to come up 2 years from now and we have a bee problem in town or we don't. The flight thing just scares the hell out of me, but that's something different. Clarified that one. Yeah, and I think what you did, and I appreciate that, in E of that section, every person maintained an apiary, so that was nice that you cleaned that up and got rid of that, other than that of his residence. See, one more. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Assuming that you want to place the owner-occupant limitation, you can amend section 8 on page 5, H on page 5 to say, any person operating an apiary shall be the owner and occupant of the property upon which the apiary is located.
Okay, I'm good with that. Is where it goes, because they had every person maintain an apiary on the premises other than that of his residence. So you're saying put owner?
Yeah, any person, because person's defined.
Yes.
Operating an apiary shall be the owner and occupant of the property upon which the apiary is located.
Does that mean tenants also?
No, there's a language which says tenants may, no, owner and occupant. If you own it, you're not a tenant.
Right, but what I mean by that is if you're renting a house, you're not allowed to have bees?
No, that's correct.
Okay, that cleans it up then. I'm good with that.
Any other questions? Robin? Comments? Or questions right now?
Questions right now. So I do have a question. Will any potential apiary owners be required to register with the Riverside County Ag Commissioner as well through this process?
Correct. Yes, they do.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions? Staff? Thank you, Melvin.
Thank you.
Good report. Going to open the public hearing. Dana, do we have any cards?
Yes, the first speaker card, Mike Williams.
Hello again, Mike.
Again, thank you for the opportunity. Watch the look on my face. Let it sink in. April 2016, I was part of a pack group. There were 10 pack strings for the Pacific Crest Trail Association going up the PCT. We were hauling for their trail crews. I had my 2 pack horses with me. I was number 9 in a string of 10. About 4 miles in, about a mile before we had one road, came around a corner. The trail up there is about 4 feet wide. Past a crevice, my horses started acting a little odd, and I noticed there's bees flying around out of this crevice. My front pack horse and my back one pulled back, pulled out of my hand. I couldn't hold them. I got off of my saddle horse, turned around, and by the time I could get turned around, one horse is falling into a ravine, the other one's heading for the bushes. I cut the ropes. The one that fell in the ravine fell about 25 feet. The other one went into the bushes and ended up falling 75 to 100 feet into a tree below that cliff. I paid attention to this one first, got his packs off, got him on his feet. He was torn up badly. The one in the tree, they had to guide me around from the top because I couldn't find the trail to come back around to him. Rolled his packs off. I carry a saw with me, so I sawed the branches off, rolled him out of this tree, got him on his feet. He fell half a dozen times. I think he hit his head. We never did find out. Ended up leaving this one in a canyon about 200 or 300 feet down and put him out in the grass out there. The other one I stayed with, I had water being brought to both these horses. The decision was made to airlift them out. This one wouldn't move. The other one I thought was damaged worse than he would put up with. The one horse was airlifted out and got down to the trailers. The other horse, when they gave him the shot to relax him, was a reverse effect. He reared up, flipped over off the cliff, fell about 40 feet. He was dead. Okay. I was airlifted out before any of these things happened, and as much as I told them I know what I'm doing and I stay in control, they wouldn't live with that. We hauled the other horse down to Chino Hospital, and he was in 90% renal failure, which is from the toxins from the bees. And we ended up having to make the decision to put him down. Okay, so in about 36 hours, we lost 2 horses. Now, I'm all for people having an easier way with the bees. I know we need them. This is Horsetown, USA. Your vote on this should support Horsetown, USA, and in my mind, it should be a no vote. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Mike.
Next speaker card is Sigrid Williams.
Again.
Dana, I have some paperwork for them, if you don't mind. And I ask the council members to please not look at any of that past the first 2 pages until I ask you to do so. I love honey. I love reaping the rewards of my fruit trees because they are pollinated. However, that does not mean we need to bring more bees into this town and revise the current code to allow these bees to be within 50 feet of an adjacent residence or property line, or 100 feet from parks, playgrounds, or public right-of-ways. Last week, the U.S. Department of Agriculture said that Africanized honeybees have infiltrated 9 southern states, including 3 counties in Southern California. They also stated that these bees attack and seriously injure hundreds of people and animals. They acknowledge that the bee is very unpredictable, respond quickly to disturbances 50 feet or more from their nests. Once disturbed, may remain agitated for as long as 24 hours. They sting excessively and will chase an enemy up to a mile or more. They embed themselves in current colonies and beehives. UC San Diego conducted a study and found that more than 60% of foraging honeybees in San Diego County are now Africanized, along with a great population growth in Southern California. The National Safety Council has stated that a bee is much more deadly than a dog. On average, 62 people die of bee, wasp, and hornet stings every year here in the United States. The British Beekeepers Association said horses and bees don't generally make good neighbors. And now for some actual cases. Honeybees stung a Montana family's 14-year-old horse to death in June. 4 horses died after being attacked by a swarm of bees. Several horses were found dead in a pond and are believed to have drowned while trying to escape from bees. A swarm of bees attacked a couple as they were exercising their miniature horses, stinging the animals so many times they died. The bees also killed 5 hens and stung the couple's dog. Veterinary medicine published a case report and concluded that massive attacks in equines by bees is of great importance. You have a picture of Spirit, one of our horses we lost in a bee-horse encounter. This is on page 3. Please do not go to page 4 yet. Look closely at the top picture of the page. It shows the bees all over his legs. The bottom picture was his last, bandaged and hooked up to an IV, but nonetheless he died of renal failure and organ shutdown. Make your decision wisely because your actions will affect everyone in this town. It is your responsibility to ensure the health and safety of the public. Allowing beehives and colonies so close to property lines, parks, and right-of-ways is contrary and negligible. Now I ask you to use caution. On the last page of pictures that I shared with you is an accident that I sustained on June 2007. I was riding with Mike on Temescal in the middle of the afternoon. We believe my horse was stung on his backside because of the noticeable swelling and how he broke into 2, bucking up the trail so hard he kicked the pad out from underneath his saddle. I woke up 20 minutes later after the accident, being placed in an ambulance. I sustained numerous facial fractures, lacerations requiring stitches, torn facial muscles, damage to my left eye, a moderate concussion, and after all of that, a staph infection too. I was not stung, and thank goodness I wasn't. Mike has my EpiPen. Had I been stung and not had that with me, he would have lost me too, not just our horses. Don't let this happen to anyone else.
Thank you.
I have no further speaker cards, Mayor.
Thank you, Dana. Go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back for council discussion and action. Robin?
Can I have another question of staff? Melvin or Michelle, can you speak to the comments on Africanized bees and what you were told by UCR?
When we talk with
to that.
When we talk with UCR, he explained that every bee that is here has a mixture of Africanized, but it's not a full strain. Guess you would say purebred. But if anybody is concerned about that, there are bees around us all over, and like I said, there are a mixture. It's not a full strain of Africanized bees.
Any other discussion items?
Yeah, I'm still a little hesitant on this, and the reason I am, because I'm one of those people like Slager that I've been stung 3 times, and every time I've got stung, the reaction has been worse. And so, and I've swelled up, and it's not a fun experience. So, do I carry an EpiPen? No, it's been a while. It's been at least over 20 years since my last bee sting. But I also a little more cautious there. Our problem is, and Mike said, well, this is Horsetown, USA. We have kids. I can tell you that when I'm out on equipment and I put on my yellow slicker or I wear my yellow coat, I've got bees coming at me. Seriously, up at Ingalls Park. They're flying up there, and they're there. So you're asking, and I understand the thing about the bees and wanting to keep it for the propagation for our vegetables and for trees and fruit. I understand. You talk about somebody that grew up around the dairies. We had the alfalfa fields. We'd go and find the beehives were out there along the fields for pollination of the alfalfa. I understand that. I know there's a need. But the concentration of young writers in this town and the potential for having an accident, somebody just going in and going through that and putting beehives in residential area. I know it's on a half acre and we're going to put restrictions. I think we're just asking for trouble. And that's my feeling on it. It's the young writers that aren't going to know, and they're going out there with themselves and teenagers. You've seen it. Chad's seen it out there. Pepper trees hollowed out, beehives in them. And we get calls on them. And I'm just this control flight thing, I just don't understand that at all. But that's my feeling. I just can't. I think restricting the bees, the beekeeping that we have and keeping it away with, will reduce the number of incidents that we have. So thank you.
Go ahead, Robin.
So we've had this push lately to increase agriculture and go back to our agricultural roots in the city of Norco. I may be naive in this, but my understanding is we had horses and agriculture at the same time when our city was started. When we look at agriculture as a total picture, we need all parts of the ecosystem. We can't exclude one over another. There are inherent dangers in owning horses and riding horses. There are inherent dangers being involved in production agriculture. That's a fact. And as I was going through the municipal code and looking at ways that we can make our community more friendly to agriculture and have horses and have small farms, because we're going to need both to sustain this community. The beekeeping or the apiary ordinance as it existed was 100% restrictive. I couldn't think of one location in this city under the existing municipal code where somebody would be able to keep bees on their property. If you read the older code, it is clear to me that there was an incident or something happened in this town that resulted in that specific municipal code being written the way it was, with the intent of completely getting rid of apiaries in our community. Staff has worked over a year on looking at this. It's been through several departments. It started in Public Works, it's been through planning, it's been through community services. So they've reached out to experts in the field, and I still believe that there are enough restrictions in this particular ordinance that it's going to be very, very few people that actually can meet the requirements to have an apiary in this community. I don't think we're going to find an oversaturation. I would honestly be surprised if we had more than 5 applicants with this program. We would fall under the umbrella of the county as well. I think there's provisions in this that if there is recklessness, if there is unsafe beekeeping, that animal control services would be able to take care of that issue relatively quickly. I would also state, even under the old municipal code, if this one doesn't go, that schools can have apiaries under current code. And so this idea that not having apiaries is going to protect children, we already allow apiaries at schools and places of education under our standing code. So that should just be noted. So again, when we're looking at the agricultural uses of some of the larger properties in Norco, again, we're just giving some of our niche farmers an opportunity, or the boutique farms, whatever you would like to call them. We're giving opportunities for those folks to have their farm and do so in a legal and controlled and an enforceable manner.
Catherine?
You know, some folks have things that they're not supposed to have in our city, right? Do we know, do we have an estimate, do we know of any folks who are keeping bees on their residences who might be doing so that are not in accordance right now with municipal code?
No, nobody right now that we know of. I can say the last time I remember, me and code enforcement went out there, and that was on 2nd Street about 5.5 years ago, and that was the last one.
Okay. I just, a couple points, right? The majority of insects that pollinate flowers are bees. Bees are responsible for pollinating more than 70% of crops that end up as our food. There's a worldwide bee, decline in bee populations. our city motto is city living in a rural atmosphere. And so I can say I was really excited to have this come forward because I think it's really an important piece of our identity in Norco that we have these large lots and that we want to support the agricultural lifestyle, and we want to really looking at things like farm to fork and local farmers. And a piece of that is allowing people to keep bees. And if people find bees, that they're able to rehome them or place them in places that they can survive instead of using chemicals and killing them. I really appreciate the time that staff has spent on this and that outside experts, right? We really went out and got experts, and not just some far away, but in our county, who really study these things, who, have PhDs, right? They know what they're talking about. I was in the Peace Corps. There were a number of volunteers who did beekeeping, and they did beekeeping as a way for starting businesses in communities where folks were looking and becoming more sustainable and providing food for their family. I would just agree. I don't know that this is going to explode and we're going to have populations of bees on every corner. It's not that easy to keep bees. You need training, you need expertise, and there is a process now in place. There's a cost that you have to pay. You got to fill out a permit. You're going to be inspected. If there's issues, then we know that you're going to take care of it. I'm definitely supportive of this, and I'm glad to see it in our community.
Kevin? Anything?
Well, I'm a little nervous, except that my daughter in Westlake Village, her lot is it's less than the size of this room, and she keeps bees. She's got a little tiny, and they don't seem to have any problems. And I don't know, but what Mike and his wife said gives me pause. But when I was a kid, there was lots of bees, and I mean there were lots, and people raising bees in the 60s. I'm not sure what the incident was, but anyway, that's all. Thanks.
My only couple of comments on this is that, Mike, I have a lot of understanding with the situation you went through. I went through something very identical up in the mountains, and I know how fast a horse can move when a bee stings it. But to me, it's a different environment. It's up in the hills, up in the mountains. It's wild. It's not controlled. Not only are we horse town, small plot, agricultural, animal keeping. I'm going to take Robin's comment about, I don't see the magnitude of this growing. It's going to be onesie twosies. It is the way I'm looking at this. And if it's controlled, at this point in time, I feel comfortable with it. That's probably all I have to say.
Mr. Mayor, if I can, just let you know, with the professionals that we reached out to, Boris Baer, the professor, as well as Liz Savage from the Orange County Beekeeper Association, and as well as Chris Fauché and Patrick Mitchell from the EATS program, all of those professionals have offered assistance and training in public education and partnerships with us. So there are forecast organizations that will also help us. So I'm thoroughly confident that we can bring that to the community and educate the residents and the beekeepers who would like a permit for use on that.
Thank you. If there's no other discussion, I'll entertain a motion for Ordinance 1088, first reading.
Move to approve Ordinance 1088.
Second.
So with the owner-occupied...
Yeah, with amendments that were made.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Norco, California, amending Norco Municipal Code Title 5, Business License and Regulations, to amend Chapter 5.36, Apiaries, Code Amendment 2022-05.
And please vote. Motion passes with Councilmember Hoffman voting no.
Thank you. Okay. Item 6D, public hearing continued to October 5th.
And in order to avoid renoticing, you need to make a motion to do that.
To
Continue it.
continue.
Yeah.
I was notified by staff that they need to move this to the second meeting in October. The 19th.
The 19th.
The 19th, excuse me, in order for it to go to the Parks and Recs Commission before it comes back to council.
I'll make a motion to continue the hearing until October 19th, 2022 for an ordinance of the City Council amending the Norco Municipal Code for Animals and Working Animal Protection Act.
Second.
Please vote. Your vote, Councilmember Hoffman. Motion passes unanimous.
Thank you, Dana. Okay, City Council staff communications. Any city staff? City manager. Snooze you lose.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just very briefly, I want to congratulate the Fair Committee on a wonderful Norco Fair. It was fantastic. It was great being out there. I especially want to extend a big thanks to our team. We had many staff from our facilities folks, parks, animal control, police, fire department out there for many days in preparation for the fair and then at the fair. So I'm very thankful for their work there. There was a comment tonight about our decision to not have an information booth at the fair, and that was my decision. Part of my job is to make tough decisions sometimes, and with the number of staff we had devoted to supporting the actual fair activity, we just did not have enough folks to cover a booth with information and give them adequate break and rest relative to the heat we had. So it's not a decision I was excited to make, but it was a tough one that I had to make, and it's the right decision for the communities to be able to focus on the actual fair activities instead of just an information booth. So just wanted to provide that point of clarification, Mayor, so thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Chad?
I just wanted to remind council and the public that Saturday, October 1st is our next dump day and the last one for the year. It's between 8 a.m. and 12 noon. It's a very popular event, thankfully, and the community really responds to it. Last event, we had over 500 vehicles come through, so you can bring your bulky items, miscellaneous material that you have, anything that recyclables will take. We also encourage folks to bring their shredding. That's also a very popular element of the event. So if you have shredding, you can bring bankers boxes of shredded materials that we will take. But we encourage everyone to come and support that event. So if you have any materials, please do so. But again, between 8 a.m. and 12 noon, you can come as many times as you want. Please do not bring trailers. If you bring a trailer, we will give you a pass that will allow you to go to the landfill itself. But we do not take trailers. If you're bringing material in, it has to be in your own personal vehicle, truck, car, however you want to fit it in there. But don't bring a trailer. Otherwise, we will send you over to El Sobrante landfill. But you will be able to get in for free with a pass. But it would encourage everyone to take advantage of the event.
Thank you, Chad.
Chad, are you going to provide hats for Dana and Julie this time so they don't burn?
I think Kelly has some great hats she gives away.
Yeah, she has those. No, I want those big straw hats like you wear.
City Attorney. Thank you, John. City Council. Ted?
Yeah, I just want to compliment Lori and the staff. Today we talked about with the animal control officers about we just got through with the Fairview fire, and I was glad to see EMS guys, the emergency management system here. Melvin, we need to reach out to those guys for that purpose, and you can use Matt to help pick up crows. But sat down and talked about the possibility. We're entering into our, what we call our normal wildland fire area time, and for NART setting up and see if we have to use the Ingalls Park as the evac center. So I'm glad you and your staff we're talking about it, and we're going to put something together so we don't have to rush around and not have anything. So thank you.
Good. Thanks, Ted. Robin? Catherine? Kevin? Thank you all so much. Have a good evening.